occasionally, when I get all up in my head, when I'm thinking and thinking instead of knowing and feeling, I start wondering if I'm happy. I mean, look in my life. I am here staring into a vast, uncertain future. I have a job that's not earning me any money. My husband is dying of cancer. It not only feels like it's wrong to be happy, but it feels like it's selfish. Or is it actually selfish not to be happy? Maybe it's selfish to ruin whatever time we have on earth together with dread and mourning. When I try to sort those different things out in my head, I end up in a can't win loop. And I pretty much stay there until I engage mindfulness and ask myself, what is happy? And why do I have to be happy? What if I wasn't aiming to be happy or sad or exuberant or joyful or worrying, but just aiming to be how I am in the moment? There are a lot of reasons why I know that this approach would be better. Today I want to talk about some of the lessons that I've gained from meditation and mindfulness. I want to tell you about the science behind satisficers and maximizers, and I want to talk about the Swedish concept of lagom. And if we get through all that, maybe I'll be able to convince you too that just being is better than being happy. So first of all, let's talk about meditation. I've been meditating for about 4 years at this point, give or take. And I don't have much professional training, but one of the lessons that I really took to heart is the idea of equanimity. Equanimity is the state of being calm and smooth and stable no matter what's going on in your life. It doesn't matter if you're at the peaks or in the valleys. Equanimity is accepting it all as it comes and being okay with it. I think of equanimity as being out in the ocean past where the waves break and just riding the ups and downs of those waves wherever they take you, and not being really bothered by whether they're high or low because you're just flowing along with them. When I think about equanimity, it makes me realize that all of my feelings are valid, and it allows me to just sit with those feelings washing over me, experiencing them, but not becoming hyper reactive to them. And for me, because I have complex PTSD, that becomes even more important because hypervigilance and hyperreactivity are part of the condition. Having the skill to smooth out those highs and lows can make a big difference in my quality of life from day to day. One of the fundamental concepts of equanimity that appeals to me is realizing that being happy and being sad are both just states of mind that we can be in, and they are equally valid. Now, I know that it's more fun to be happy, but rather than being caught up in that, what if we could just be in the moment wherever that moment might be? I know that I don't spend a lot of time in my life at the very peaks of euphoric happiness, and I would be more than happy to step back and experience those peaks at a little bit of an observational distance in order to not be completely mired in the lowest of the low parts of my life. That doesn't mean we can't enjoy the peaks, and that doesn't mean that the troughs won't be difficult, but it makes everything a little bit easier. Sometimes when you are constantly seeking those peaks, it keeps you from ever really experiencing them. There's been a lot of research going all the way back to the 1950s about the way people make decisions in their lives. And that research came to a consensus of classing people in two groups, satisficers and maximizers. Maximizers are those of us, and I count myself as a maximizer, who like to weigh every single option before making a decision. And the more options, the better, because that ensures that we're going to make the right decision, the absolute right decision, because we have looked at so many different things and we have compared and contrasted and made lists and brought in even more options until we are certain that we've made the absolute best choice. Except we're never really certain, are we? Because we're always wanting to bring in those more options. The other kind of people are satisficers. Satisficers are people who, when they're making a decision, they look at a few options that seem to be among the best ones. They make a choice out of that option, and then they're done. They set it aside, and that is the decision that they've made, and whatever it is, it's good enough. It turns out that satisficers end up a lot more happy and contented in the long run than maximizers. Satisficers don't live with as much niggling doubt and regret over their decisions, because once their decision is made, it's made, and they haven't spent a lot of time and energy ensuring that it's perfect, so they don't feel the need for it to have been perfect. Satisficers know that no decision is going to be perfectly perfect, so you can just accept the decision that you've made and move forward. It sounds like a nice way to be, doesn't it? Maximizers almost never come out on top. Satisficers may or may not come out on top, but they end up winning because they spent a lot less time worrying about it. Which brings me to the idea of having to maximize our happiness. Every year, there's a survey done called the World Happiness Report, and it ranks different countries in order of the happiness of the population of those countries. For the last 6 years, the country that's come on top of that survey is Finland. Before that, the country was often Denmark. And when you look down the list, right now, Finland's 1, Denmark's 2, Iceland is 3, Sweden is down at 6, and Norway is at 7. That's a lot of Nordic countries in the top 10. So I was reading up on why the people in Nordic countries seem to be so happy. And seeing as I want to be happy, I started learning Swedish because that seemed like a good gateway. All of the languages that I've studied on Duolingo give you a little idea of the culture with the early words that they teach you. For example, in French, one of the first words you learn is croissant. In German, one of the early words you learn is stressig, which is stressful. My job is stressful. In Swedish, one of the first words you learn is lagom. And lagom is just the right amount. It's not too much and not too little. Reading up on the Nordic countries and the World Happiness Report, what I learned is this idea of lagom, of not too much, of not too little, of having just the right amount of something, is endemic to these countries. When Finnish people were asked why they were so happy, many of them cited things like the social supports in their country, but many of them also said, I wouldn't say that I'm wonderfully happy all the time. I'm content. I have enough. I have what I need. And that turns out to be the secret to happiness. To lower your expectations. To learn to be happy with having the right amount and not always needing more. Is it that easy? Can you just decide that what you have makes you happy and then be happy? It is and it isn't, I think. When we have a mental illness, a lot of us have pathways that are already sort of coded into our brains that take us down these routes of negative thinking patterns. We have chemical imbalances that encourage our bodies to react to stress in a different way, to react to depression in a different way, to not respond to joy in the same way as others. But that doesn't mean we can't be happy. That doesn't mean that we can't decide what's enough for us and accept that. It just takes practice. Once we know what the chemicals in our body and our thinking patterns are doing to us, we can recode those things. We can practice and practice until our natural mode of thinking is a different way of thinking. We can take medication that adjusts the chemical levels in our body. We can do things like exercise and meditate and eat well and sleep well in order to try to tip the balance for us. Just knowing that these things are possible is power. And just believing that it's possible to be happy is power. And practicing is even more power. But you know what else is power? Knowing that we can set our own threshold for happiness. What we require for happiness doesn't have to be the same thing that our best friend requires, or our spouse requires, or the neighbors across the street, or that girl on Instagram requires. We can decide that our requirements for happiness are whatever we want them to be. And for me, that means that I want equanimity, lagom, and I want to learn to be a satisficer. If you made it this far in this video, I would love it if you hit the thumbs up button and subscribe so that we could talk more in the future. Until next time, I am wishing you love and joy and all of those good things, and I absolutely can't wait to talk to you.